Growing up, we used to know that the rural areas are places where people retire after making a living in the cities. But that narrative is set to change, or is it? My guest today is going to unpack that and give us his inspiring story on how he's transitioning from urban to the rural areas. Sean Chitsiga is my guest today on Africa Reconnection. Thank you very much for joining us, Sean.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, just to put things into perspective, let's start from your background.
Yeah.
Who is Sean and what have you done?
Yeah.
And what motivated you to migrate to the rural areas?
Okay. So Sean Tichaona Chitsiga is a young man, 40 years old, and I grew up in Harare, Kwekwe, and Bulawayo. So I was raised between those three places. Attended my primary school in Redcliffe Primary School, moved to North Park in Harare, moved to Hatfield Primary, ended up in Bulawayo at Milton High School, where the man in me came about to be. That's where I was groomed in Bulawayo. And that's where I started my career in media, initially as a graphic designer at the age of 16. Quit everything. Okay. And my talent was recognized by Mr. Naresh Naik. He was my boss that time. And he groomed me to become one of the best graphic designers at a young age. So Bulawayo, being Bulawayo, very artistic, the artist in me came out, and I started following my passion. Launched my music career, moved to Harare, became a full-time musician, lived off music for a good 6 years. And at that time, I was also learning to be an entrepreneur proper, studying business, while also running my own company, which was offering graphic design services. Later on, I then decided to follow my passion for film and television, something which I had always loved to do. Why? A lot of people ask, what's the proof evidence? Do you always love film, television? I grew up in a media family. My aunt, who raised me, who I lived with throughout most of my life, was a news reporter on ZBC. So as a kid, I would spend time at Montrose Studios, just chilling. And my babysitters would be TV presenters and radio DJs. Oh, wow. So that's the life I grew up in. Yeah. So I always knew that one day I'm going to be on TV. I just didn't know when or how. So around 2013, I followed that passion. And we started with a colleague, a friend, Blessed, a former employee of ZBC. Through all the networks I had because of growing up with my aunt, I was able to connect with people in the media industry at a young age. And we started Green Studio TV show, ran on ZBC for 143 episodes. Wow. I was the presenter, co-presenter, editor, and creative director of that show. I think that's where my real connection with being with the environment and appreciating rural life and the other side of life. It came from that experience of traveling across Zimbabwe, producing 143 episodes of an environmental TV show. Yeah.
And how has all the skills that you have amassed in the media industry helped you to enhance your passion in environmental issues?
Yeah. So through interviewing some of the top experts in Zimbabwe, including directors of organizations like EMA, Forestry Commission, and NGOs like the International Labour Organization, I've spoken to some of the top experts through all my productions. Their insights are research-driven, they are real, and the results that they are achieving are tangible. We see them when we are filming. So that has enhanced my knowledge on the environment. I know how to plant trees because I've been shooting tree planting since 2013. So there's no way I won't know how to plant and take care of a tree. Yeah. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
So now let's talk about your transition. At which point did you then decide, you know what, I think I must start this move of going to the rural areas? Because I would imagine that the bulk of your life has been in the cities. Even when you're doing environmental work, you would then come back to the cities.
Yeah.
You go out to do work and then come back into the cities.
Yeah.
At which point did you then say, you know what, I think this is where life is going to be for you?
Okay, so I think around 2014, 2015, while we were producing work for television, for Green Studio, we featured work done by Environment Africa, and they were working in my village. So I got to travel extensively in my own village and appreciate the contrast and the difference between other villages I had gone to and my own place. And from that time, I told myself that I need to be the difference that I see in other places. So from after that season, 2014, 2015, producing that content for this organization, I then started to go back and visit. But fortunately, or unfortunately, but yeah, fortunately for me, my aunt, who was the last sole custodian of our homestead, fell ill, and she invited me. She's actually sold a cow, sent me $50, asked me to come. She wanted to talk to me. We sat down, and she told me kuti vakomana makura, isusu titori vasikana and tanga tichikuchengeterai. Chitorai musha wenyu, muone zvekuita nawo, honai waparara. And for sure, things were in a terrible state. The structures, the housing structures, they were inhabitable. It wasn't a place where you'd want to spend the night or two. You'd quickly run away. But after she said that, she left a very big burden on me to be a man and take responsibility. And yeah, that was around 2018. And from there, I started making well-calculated moves to relocate to the village.
To the village.
Yeah.
And how important was that, particularly when you look at it from a legacy perspective, preserving the name? And a rural home resembles the sanctity of the name of a people and the name of the family.
Yeah. I think it was very important, and I really appreciate my late aunt. She then passed on after she had pulled off this move. I really appreciate that move, because without that Passover, I would probably not have had this connection with the village or with my home. And I'm actually the only link, maybe, because all my other relatives, my uncles, my father's brothers, they live in the diaspora. I'm the only Chitsiga from that homestead who is here.
So and how is that transition going? Have you really settled in very well, assimilated with the environment and the people there?
Oh yeah, it's been difficult, especially when it comes to the work that needs to be done. I'll give you an example. Like, there was a thick hedge all around the homestead. That hedge was useless and not helping us in any way. We took us 2 years to get rid of it all, and that's manual labor, chopping it out, getting rid of the roots, and changing the type of vegetation there. So it's been difficult to settle in. Then also, because I grew up in town, and all my life, it's only in my mid-30s that I started making this move. There's certain comforts that we're used to, which come with living in town. So making the rural home into those comforts, that has been very difficult as well, and quite costly.
And it's not cheap as well.
It's not cheap at all, because you're literally turning like dagger houses into tiles
Into modern
and
structures and
proper structures, and that's quite expensive. So yeah, but in terms of appreciating the life there and assimilating with the values and culture and linking up with people there, that has gone well because I've always gone to the village as a kid, visiting, coming back. So everyone knew me, everyone knows me, and they were actually shocked and happy at the same time. Good, Shon Diak today, so welcome, welcome, and they
Yeah.
helped me to settle in,
Fantastic.
especially to understand our boundaries, also to appreciate the leadership status and structure of our home. Yeah, they helped me to settle in.
And how important is it? I know a lot of people, out there from the city and also some from the diaspora are trying to make their way back home and they want to settle in their rural homes.
Yeah.
How important is it for them to assimilate with the not just the environment but also the people there, the culture and the traditions?
So oral history is the most solid history that you can depend on, and you can only get that from people. So from my experience as a media practitioner, as a journalist, I learned that you can get evidence from asking a certain number of people certain questions or the same set of questions at different times to find out if it's the truth or not. There's no way the whole village would conspire to tell you one story which is a lie. So it's very important to link up with people, talk to them. You'll understand how things are done, what you are supposed to do at what time. There's simple things like chisi. I did not do Shona at school because I learned in Bulawayo. So I did not appreciate or know more about chisi. I got to appreciate that in my 30s. And I would take it as, come on, can't you see it's Friday, what? Ndopedza mai manje. But the more I got to link up with the locals, I then got to understand what role that plays in our culture and why it is important. Yeah.
Interesting that you bring out such an example, Yechisi. We do have a lot of, African wisdom that is, embedded in some of the practices that we do as a people. What are some of the lessons that you have learned being in the village that you consider as wisdom and life skills?
Yeah. So the first and most important is hard work. That is instilled in our people from a very young age. Some of the stories that I've always heard about my great-grandfather, for example, it even bordered close to slavery. you'd take mapoto nema ingredients kumunda, and we come back taknorara so that you work. The reason why you have to rest for at least one day, it is practical. The body itself needs to reset. You can't continue to work non-stop. It does not make sense. You will injure yourself and you will not be able to produce more. That is the basic wisdom of that. Yes, there's deeper things. We are praying to the gods so that they can bless us and the rains may continue as we grow in the fields. There's so many things associated with it. But the basic, you need at least a day to reset. And that exists everywhere, even in the modern world. There's leave days, there's off days. So basic wisdom like that, for me, has made sense and has helped me to do the most, especially when I'm in the village. Then things about preserving forests. Kune masango anoyera, kune makoma anoyera. But I believe that kuyera kwacho is in the importance of the resources which are in there. So zvinoita kunge people are scaring you off or using voodooism or witchcraft to scare you off things, but it's basic wisdom to say, at least let's preserve this forest because that's how the rains will come, and it's an environmental choice that they've made. So there's so much wisdom that is embedded in our culture, and if you look at it, it is just the same as the wisdom that is in books and in modern education, because all these things are there. Yeah.
Let's talk about the environment, serene and tranquil environment. How has that done to the creative being you are?
Yeah. It has done wonders. From my travels producing content, I've really enjoyed and been more productive when I'm in serene places. So the opportunity to turn my own home into such a serene place has been amazing, because it's a quiet place. There's no noise. The only noise you will hear is animals, cows and goats, turkeys, chirping birds, people here and there, but as they pass and go by. We have so much space, so much clean air, and for me, that's a great opportunity to make a difference for ourselves. And yeah, so the environment is good. It has helped me to create more. I've actually relocated a lot of my production equipment. I edit from Kumusha. I've got 24/7 solar power, and that has enabled me to be more productive and do more. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the rural home, the setup. What's going on there? What have you done?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, issues of sustainability are very key.
Yeah. All right. So in total, we've got about 8 hectares of land, which is set up in the typical rural way. The homestead, which is about 2.5 hectares, and the rest Kuminda, about 2 kilometers away from home. So the first thing we decided to do was to focus on the homestead, Tombosia, the big Kumunda. We started off with fencing, fenced off the whole property. That was a 2.5 to 3 year process, including lessons learned.
Yeah.
Used wood,
Yes.
all of it collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
From termites.
Mm-hmm.
We had to start using metal, so it's been quite a process. So we fenced off. Then all the properties that existed, which were built by Anasekuru in the early 80s, we renovated them all, and used those as our base. We didn't have to build new structures. We then went on to construct a cottage, a thatched cottage, which we use now as a guest house. We've installed a greenhouse, which came with its own lessons, because 3 years later now it is torn. So, and I've got that's another story that I learned from that. Yeah. So we then also stopped big livestock production. We got rid of all the cattle, because we saw that it was expensive for us as a rural startup, and we've transformed now and gone into small livestock. We regularly import goats from the Zambezi Valley, which is a few kilometers, less than 100 kilometers from us. So we take advantage of that.
Those goats are very, very good.
They are very good.
Very good breeds, yeah.
Yeah. And we've introduced local goats. Modernized the place, lots of lighting, so that we can increase our nightlife. We get to do things at night now, productive things, because there is light. We've gone on to construct new structures, chicken housing, things which were not there, goat paddocks, and planted a lot of trees. We've planted, so far, I think I've planted, I've lost count, but definitely more than 1,500 trees within the property.
Amazing, yeah.
Including, I think it was 2023 tree planting season, where we bought 1,000 fodder trees at once, and just started creating a fodder forest within that 2.5 hectare property. And all these pieces, the greenhouse, the paddocks, the tree area, the orchards, they are all separated through smart fencing, so that our animals don't affect where we don't want them to go. And whenever we need them to clear a certain area, we open up that area and they clear it for us.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Sustainability in the rural areas.
Yeah.
A sustainable lifestyle. For a very long time, we know we slowly digressed from the sustainable way of food production, for instance.
Yeah.
adopting the more conventional ways. How important is it for us, particularly in the rural areas,
Yeah.
to go back to a more natural way of producing food
Yeah.
and maintaining a healthy lifestyle?
It's very important. Without a good health, we cannot be able to sustain ourselves for generations to come. So it's very important that we try to adopt. Um, for example, what we have done, fruits are a very important part of any diet. And our forefathers had figured that out. That's why in most villages, there's lots of mango trees. Clusters of mango trees. And when you look at it, there's a structure and a plan to it. Each homestead needed to have a certain number of fruit trees in order to sustain. We changed that. We no longer focused on, we were clearing all land. Well, we didn't. There's a generation before us. Clear land, plant lots of maize, plant lots of sugar beans, monoculture. Every year after year, you're tilling and planting maize, tilling and planting maize. And those generations are still there today. I have conversations with them up to today. My elderly aunties they visit Kumusha and they'll be asking kuti, imi, kupamba pengi pane nzara, hapana kana chibage. Sure, ndoka portion keshbage kamgarime. And I'm like, no. But you see, all these are trees.
These are trees. They are very critical. Yeah.
And then you see, this is this. These are goats. This is that. So we will always get maize if we want to. So that concept of monoculture and planting the same crops over and over again, that is stuff which Kudara, it was not really like that. But over time, it became that way for various reasons. But we are changing that now. Yeah.
And then going back to the basics. No, I mean it's quite encouraging to hear that, because when I look at it, it's stuff that our grandmothers used to do.
Yeah.
Where even they plant chibage, they will always have a legume. They just didn't have the scientific name to it.
Yeah.
But they somehow had the concept.
Yeah.
And they would implement that.
Yeah.
Very lastly, we just want to talk about you being in your 40s. We used to know that when people are going back to the rural areas, it's because they are now retiring. And it was pretty much a place where they would just go there after spending their prime years in the city. And they have nothing else to offer, both to the companies they served and to themselves to a greater extent. They decide, no, let me go to the rural areas, just wait there to die.
Yeah.
And that narrative seemed to be changing.
Yeah.
What's your message to young people, who are still considering rural areas as places where people retire waiting to die?
I think my message out there would be, if it's enterprise you're looking for, there is more opportunity in an undeveloped space, because you will be the only one. I'll tell you where I stay at Ruvinga. The most or the best meat you can get at the shopping center is pieces of chicken at some shop which has a fridge. Otherwise, if you want meat variety, you go to the township, which is 7 k's away. That's an opportunity to start a butchery. So if it's opportunities you're looking for as a young person, you can try, be bold enough. The same way we are bold enough to seek opportunities in town, we can also go seek those opportunities out there. Then when it comes to leaving a legacy, you mentioned I'm just over 40 now, and I've attended a number of funerals in my lifetime. And at the end of the day, every funeral has got one common thing. Someone needs to come and say a speech, and they have to talk about you. What people say about you is exactly how your life is. So they are going to say, he lived in town, he worked for company A, he made his money, he lived the life of lights. akazoya kunoku adai, hona ndiye ushu, ararapa. And then they'll cry and you're buried and you're gone. But in your prime years, you have an opportunity to offer something to the world, where the day that you leave the world, even if you leave early or later, you will have written down a different story. Where, like for me now, my story is, hona ishoni, taimuona pa TV, auya atora usabhuku wasekuru wake, hona zvaari kuita pamusha, ari kutibatsira. So if I die today, that's going to be my story.
Which is a powerful legacy. It lives on.
It lives on. Not kuti, Shoni taimuona pa TV, akafira kuHarare, akazoya rabox. That's a different story from the one that can be told now. So I think in our prime years, let's try to invest in such moves. Yeah, it's not for everyone. Some people would choose otherwise. But I recommend that that's the best, because then you rewrite your story and you can actually change the story of your whole family and your tribesmen.
I just want you to, unpack this reality of merging the skills that you amass in your prime years to be able to advance your passion.
Yeah.
It's impressive how you have also used your skills to be able to tell the story and inspire others about issues of rural development.
Yeah.
How important is that? Because I think what ties down a lot of people is actually the skills that they amass during the time that they are in the cities.
Yeah.
And they treat that as an end, not as a means to an end.
I think our skills actually just catapult whatever else can happen. And let's always consider that and leave an open room for when the opportunities come. It could be in different sectors. You could end up in mining, you could end up elsewhere, but you also have such skills. Like with my media skills, I've been able to take photos, take videos of our processes, of what we are doing, share them online, and a lot of people are inspired by that, and that's bringing positive change. I'm also using my skills to change my village. We've installed cameras. I'm teaching young people how to operate video cameras so that they can be able to tell our story by themselves. I've got a kit of equipment which stays Gumusha, passing on those skills, but there's more then that can come out of the skills that we've amassed in town beyond those skills themselves. So it's very important that we should not only value these skills for what they are, but use them as a means to go further and catapult to do bigger things. Yeah.
Doing bigger things. Sean Chitsiga, thank you very much for coming on Africa Reconnection. We really value the nuggets and the wisdom that you've shared with us. Yeah. And above all, the inspiration that you've given to our viewers about migrating from the cities to town.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Africa Reconnection. Let's make a date on the next edition. Until then, let's keep it rural.